Prime Minister, why do you think Cold Chisel has lasted 50 years?
Cold Chisel are legends.
Listen out to the wind, babe. Listen out to the rain.
They've lasted because of the quality of their songwriting, their musicianship, and they're a quintessential Australian band who tell Australian stories.
The first thing you know, I'll be back on Bow River again.
It's hard to believe it's 50 years since Cold Chisel started out playing in pubs all around Australia, just like this one, the Civic Hotel in Sydney. Over the decades, it's been a wild ride at times for the band and its audiences.
Cold Chisel are a fantastic band, mate. They're there as far as Australia's concerned. We're all here tonight to see them rage. Let's go.
So why has Cold Chisel made such a lasting impact on this country? In this Australian story, we'll talk to band members and also some fans to find out how this legendary group went from impoverished to iconic.
Man.
Dude.
Steve. Peter. Hey, Jimmy. How are you, son? Nice to... How are you, pal? Good. See, it's going to be good, isn't it? Yes. We're all friends. We've always been friends. There's been moments where we didn't like each other, but we've always loved each other, you know?
The old studio, eh? Still looks the same.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'll have to try and play the track for you. Hey, you know how good I am with all this stuff.
We're like brothers. That's the way I see it. It's not a business thing. It's about the music, and it's about experiencing the music with these other people.
It hasn't been all smooth sailing, you know, like any proper relationship with, I think, with a family member. It's going to be highs and lows, and we've been through all that.
There's good mutual history and there's bad mutual history. The bad mutual history tends to fade and get lost in the sepia until next time we try and do something.
I'm standing on the outside looking at it. I'm standing on the outside looking at it. I've never seen outside the law.
One of the reasons Cold Chisel had so much respect and love is because it felt like they were the people's band. Like they are historically a part of what we are. And it's like, wow, it's nearly lasted half a century.
The whole thing is built on good songs. To last long, you need the songs. It's great musicians, you know, playing great songs. And that is the secret of, you know, their longevity.
Take the whole lot of loneliness, wrap it up in some tenderness.
And then what happens is the songs start out as hits and then they become anthems.
With all my love.
And then, with time, they become sacred. And this is what's happened. This is what's happened with this band.
Only one thing can set you free is all my love.
There was something about Cold Chisel that always sounded like we could implode at any minute. We didn't have a plan B, never had a plan B with Cold Chisel. It was we go in and we make it or we die trying. And that was it.
The guys, what are they like? They're actually all quite different.
Phil, take one.
Phil Small, the bass player, I don't think he's ever had an argument with anybody in his life. Steve Prestwich, the drummer, if you said left, he'd say right. If you said up, he'd say down. It could be a pain in my ass, but I love the guy dearly. Ian Moss, not only a great guitarist, a brilliant vocalist. A vocalist that any band would give their right teeth for as a lead singer. But then you've got this lead singer called Jimmy Barnes. This rascal that drove me around the bend, but the ultimate professional. He'd spit the dummy but he would always be guaranteed to be on that stage. Don Walker, the keyboard player, the man behind it all, the leader.
Don was older and had some really clear-cut ideas on what we should do to start getting somewhere, and we did affectionately call him the mastermind.
He was the guy, only real guy in the band who had a vision of what he wanted the band to be. We were just in the band because we liked being in the band.
Cold Chisel formed in Adelaide through, a series of accidents. I answered an ad in a music shop and found myself in a suburban house where Ian had seen the same ad, and gradually we brought people on board and tipped other people overboard.
They actually were trying to get my brother John Swanee, who's a singer, and they approached him, and he was like making too much money to do it, so he said no.
John suggested this other bloke he knew, and it was his younger brother, a guy called Jim. First hearing Jim sing, I think it was early days for him, might not have had the range at that stage that his older brother John had. And at some stage, Jim seemed to sort of somehow found like another octave, just almost overnight. It was extraordinary.
I had been out and seen this band, but there was just something about them. I thought they were just amazing. They had a vibe, a feel. I got a phone call from Ian Moss asking whether I'd be interested in coming for an audition. I said yes, of course. I jumped at it.
So early years of the band, trying to make a living was hard. We soon learned we had to be a cover band for a while just to get work.
I was writing original songs. A lot of them weren't very good. We wanted to be the biggest band in the world, but the path from where we were to that was, pretty unclear. We just had this belief that what we're doing is the real thing and the whole rest of the world is wrong. Like all young bands.
In the first few years of being in the band, it was, we're very volatile. I think it's one of the big reasons we didn't get signed. I started in Cold Chisel troubled and became more troubled as we went on. And if you're troubled and you're out of control on booze and uppers, it's not a good combination. Having to deal with me on a day-to-day basis must have been a nightmare because I was absolutely out of control. People come and see Cold Chisel and would be arguing and fighting, fist fighting sometimes. So I constantly argued with everybody and would leave the band. I must have left Cold Chisel 30 times over the time we were together.
I said, we need a manager. We're scraping along the bottom, going nowhere. I need somebody that can, help us get out of this.
After spending 11 years overseas, working as a tour manager, road manager, I was looking for a band that I could build a career with. My younger brother said to me, I've seen a band that you might like, Cold Chisel. And I thought, oh my God, what a dreadful name. He convinced me to go down to see this band, and it went through my head, this could be the Motherlode. I remember sort of just telling them I thought that not only could they be huge in Australia, but I think they had the potential for worldwide.
In practice, nobody was really interested in us. We're going out playing to 3 or 4 people in Sydney and starving.
From what I could gather from the band, they were living basically hand to mouth. Every record company had knocked them back, and they've just spent their life on the road.
We're just a heavy rock band with different influences, that's all.
We built our crowd from live performance, and our audience became very loyal, very staunch, and they'd come back and they'd bring their friends.
I mean, the band were working class kids. They were pretty much like their audience. They were wild, they were unpredictable as such, but the audience loved them because I think they saw themselves up there.
There was an amazing bond between the band and their fans. Radio didn't want to know Cold Chisel, but crowds across the country, literally in their thousands, were coming to see them.
When Rod Willis came on board, I told him, you know, we're playing the same place as we were last year, and he said, maybe your situation will change if you get some new songs. And so I came in with K-San, which I had written some time before. That was our new song.
I left my heart to disciples round K-San.
It's about a Vietnam vet returning to Australia and trying to find some settlement in post-war life.
Turkey, from the ocean to the Silver City, and it's only other vets could understand.
K-San was released as a single. It was immediately banned by the radio stations around the country, basically to do with a couple of lyrics. One was speed and Novocaine, and the other was her legs were always open.
And their legs were out and open, and their minds were always closed.
But the flip side of it all, the controversy, the publicity from it was good.
And literally, things made a quantum leap. Our crowds immediately doubled. We went twice as big a halls.
Over the course of a couple of albums, I was trying to figure out how to write commercially successful melodies. I'm not a pop writer, I never was, but I think I can figure out most things.
Once I smoked a Danaman cigar.
In the end, it worked. I must have figured something out.
2 weeks ago, this was the most added song to radio playlists throughout Australia. This week, it charted nationally at 29. Cold Chisel, Cheap Wine.
I left it all behind for my cheap wine and a 3-day glow. Cheap wine and a 3-day glow.
Don had this knack of writing songs that when I sang them, I thought they were about me, and they were about the situation I was going through at the time.
I don't mind taking charity from those that I despise. Baby, I don't need your love.
And it took me a long, long time till I realized that that's what everybody in the audience was thinking too. Every single person in our audience thought that song was about them, which was, you can't ask for more.
Drunks come in, a paper bag, random vino.
Nobody else was articulating the kind of stories that Cold Chisel were telling in song.
Cappuccino.
And they were like, kind of like thank you notes to the fans in a funny way, because they were always drawing authentically from their fans' lives.
Breakfast at Sweetheart.
Other band members stepped up to the writing plate, not leaving it all on Don's shoulders. And it just seemed to be this, I don't know, a period of we're in love. that kind of feeling. It was just everything we were doing felt like gold and just inspired.
Cold Chisel fought their way through to radio airplay by becoming so popular they were unstoppable.
By 1980, they were definitely the #1 rock band in Australia, by far, by far.
As Countdown presents live from the Regent Theatre in Sydney, the 1980 TV Week Rock Music Awards.
The band were asked to perform at the Countdown Rock Awards, and the band were very much against it.
And what an amazing year it was for Australian music. Split Ends and Cold Chisel released 2 of the finest albums ever produced in Australia.
We'd been at the mercy of Countdown and TV Week, you know, like you needed to be in the middle of TV Week and you had to be on Countdown if you wanted to make it in this country. We hated people having any control over the band, and we just wanted to, you know, shake it up and say, hey, we're doing things on our terms.
Their live album, Swing Shift, Cold Chisel, My Turn to Cry.
They just exploded on stage, and they changed the lyrics to the song on the night, and they listed all the venues, which really, the venues were like battlegrounds where they had triumphed with the people over the commercial and industry resistance that had tried to stop them.
I never saw you at the Larkspur Hotel. I've never seen you in Fitzroy Street, you know, when I'm starving.
We just kind of thought that, you know, what's TV Week got to do with music, really? We thought far from them, you know. They did nothing for us.
At the end of the performance, the band basically demolished their equipment.
And the whole audience is agog and kind of half horrified.
I had phone calls from the record company. You know, you've killed the band's career, I remember. But what suddenly started to happen was people started going to record shops and buying the record. So suddenly they started to realise this is not something that's going to kill the career. This is going to escalate this career even further.
That's what we're doing it for. There's no filming it.
We're 5 totally different people. You know, you couldn't find 5 more different people than we are in that band. It was always a battle. So constantly that band were fighting, and there was a lot of tension.
Am I taking photos?
No, you're taking photos.
Managing Cold Chisel was not an easy job. Jim and Steve would often get into fisticuffs. One was from Liverpool, one was from Glasgow. And every time the road crew would convince them to go back into their room, one of them would put his head out and antagonise the other, and then they'd be off again.
Him and I were literally like this the whole time. It was particularly the tension between me and Steve, you know, because he's the timekeeper, and I'm, you know, anybody who's heard me sing, I'm in front all the time. I win every time. I'm always pushing.
But it was the tension made us sound exciting. So the very thing that made it difficult to be a part of was also the thing that probably made us most appealing.
It's a really incredible thing. You know, the whole thing, the whole secret of Cold Chisel was the tension.
Trying to make it big in America was definitely the holy grail. It was definitely the plan from day one. Chisel wanted to be a big international rock star.
We finished up going over there for 5.5 weeks. We went there into the teeth of a record company that actively hated us for one reason or another. We landed in America at a time when what we were doing on stage and on record was completely incomprehensible to what was in fashion right through the industry there. And they were mortally scared of it.
There were some funny tensions on the road the whole time. Some guys had met future wives and were missing them badly, and some guys hadn't, and probably too strictly so, had some kind of policy of just the band on the road only, we need to focus.
There is no question that the American failure, and I call it that, frustrated the band. But the thing was, the band needed to be there. They needed to almost permanently move there.
By that stage, the band had enjoyed a year or two of big success in Australia, and we had neither the stamina or the focus to go back to tours and do the hard stuff that you have to do in a new territory, such as America. Much to my regret, and much to the regret of all of us.
We should have stayed there. Naively thinking, oh, we'll just go home and wait for it all to break for us, and we'll come back and we'll be big stars.
We were so disillusioned, we never wanted to go back. But I did get a good song. I wrote You Got Nothing I Want.
In 1983, the band toured Europe.
Liebe Freunde, heute bei uns zu Gast im Rockpalast, Cold Chisel.
The reaction to it was fabulous, and I definitely could see that there was a real future there. But unfortunately, during the second European tour, that is when things started to deteriorate.
There seemed to be some fracture between Steve and the rest of the band. We weren't knitting, weren't gelling.
Steve, our drummer, he was homesick. He just wanted to go back home. He didn't enjoy it at all.
And Steve just kept on saying over and over, "We shouldn't fucking be here. We shouldn't fucking be here."
He'll get you when he can.
And then, you know, the band started to fall apart on stage.
You know, I was trying to make him play too fast. The songs were losing the groove, you know, and it went beyond volatile. It went beyond sort of tension, and it just fell apart. I remember at one point, Don's has a CP70 piano, and he just tipped the stand over, and it just crashed on the floor. But it was actually just sheer frustration. He walked off, and I thought at that point the band was dead.
Steve was singled out as the sacrificial lamb. And when we came back, he was basically, well, there's no other way of putting it, fired, you know. That was a crying shame, really, when I think about it, because he was such an integral part of the band that you couldn't really replace him.
At that stage, you know, it was 10 years or more. You know, we'd toured and toured and toured, recorded. Jim was getting fed up. He wanted to do his own thing.
We had a meeting at Don's place, and it was decided that the band would call it a day.
Yeah, it was depressing and scary, because I thought that was it. It was all over. Then it was time to forget music altogether and go get a real job and settle down and be responsible.
And I said to them, well, we can go out with a whimper or we can go out with a bang. We should do a final tour. Suddenly everybody became all enthusiastic about it. It was kind of weird, a little bit perverse, you know. Like, we've just called it a day and now everybody's going, yeah, this will be great, let's go out and tour, you know.
You know, it's the last gig, you know, so I thought I'd best come and see them. I've seen them a couple of times before. They're a really top crew. They're not worth missing.
We were quite concerned that if the tickets don't go well, we could be in a lot of trouble. I got a call from somebody, I think it might have been a radio guy, saying, do you realise there's people camping out with their sleeping bags outside the entertainment centres across the country?
Those tickets, please, with seated numbers on them. Would you like to go to my right past McDonald's and go into the main entrance? Thank you.
We love you, Jim.
Don't you dare
come back. Don't go. We love you so much.
When I went to Cold Chisel's last stand, I would have been 16 years old.
What do you think they've done for Australian music?
So sort of given it an identity. Like people sort of say Cold Chisel, they sort of say, hey, wow, that's really Australian. And people, you know, it's something that music's all about Australia.
I loved Cold Chisel. I couldn't believe just when I was starting to love their music that it was all going to be over.
Just the people, because everyone gets right into so enthusiastic.
I had to be there because I'd grown up with Cold Chisel, but deep down in my heart I'm thinking there's no way that this beautiful young band is going to stop here.
Let's go and sing a few songs.
We were all thinking that this is it, this is the last one. Yeah, it was pretty bittersweet, a bit very sad, because, you know, we knew it was the end. As far as we all individually thought, well, we're never going to do this again. Not as Chisel.
We wanted to go out in a blaze of glory. Steve was back in the band again, and it brought all that magic and fire back into the band.
And there was an element of frustration. I knew if they had stuck together that it could have happened for them overseas. I firmly believe that even to this day.
Halfway through that set, it suddenly hit me, no, this is it, mate. All done. and there's a little break catch in my voice, just tiny little catch, and that was me just catching myself from starting to cry.
I've been thinking, this is, last time I'm going to play with these songs, and that was a frightening thing for me because I didn't know how I could go on with that band around me.
I was very happy, I felt, because it had been very tense in the band for quite a while. I felt a great freedom to be able to get on with the rest of my life.
I was like, well, this is it for me. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought Chisel would initially fade away.
I just accepted that was the last time we'd ever play, that within a couple of years it would be Cold Who.
You're listening to Sydney's 104.9 Triple M. This is Cold Chisel's Choir Girl.
After the band had broken up, strangely enough, instead of dropping the band, FM radio really, really got behind it, and it just became their staple diet.
She's crying like a refugee.
FM radio was all about albums, and the bands that were making great albums like Cold Chisel were the go-to bands. I think for a lot of Australians, Cold Chisel was the soundtrack to the best years of their lives. So the fact that we were playing music long after they broke up is no surprise. Listeners were demanding it.
Every time you switched on the radio, it was a Cold Chisel song. It was a complete surprise. And on and on it went, and then I just realised these songs, they're definitely here. They're not going to go away.
And they ended up selling more records as such than what they'd done prior to their breakup, and has kept the name alive.
It kind of made the band uncool because they had become so popular. So they were seen as part of this sort of bogan culture that more sophisticated people were rejecting.
I mean, a lot of people just thought we were a pack of yobs. There's a lot of people out there just thought we were thick-headed yobs, which the band was far from.
Somehow people remained interested, and Jim started to have, big success around the country, which has continued. And then a few years later, Ian had big success.
During that period when they were off doing their own thing, there were rumours of offers. Like, if you could ever get the band back together, we'd be happy to give them $1 million or whatever the case may be. But none of them were ever taken seriously.
We weren't really interested for that. But it was one of those things like hell freezing over, because we thought we'd done it all. We said we weren't going to go back.
Yesterdays are gone.
In the early 90s, we released this album, Teenage Love, which was a compilation of very early recordings.
King's Cross is my home, and all night long I'll roam.
It broke down the barriers, and they started talking.
I think we all missed it, to tell you the truth. Maybe, it's a possibility that the band could reform and do another tour.
I'd started to think it'd be great to do it again, but it's one of those things where there's a lot of history, a lot of ghosts, attached to that band, and are they best left undisturbed, or do we disturb them again?
I didn't like the idea initially, because I was adamant when the band broke up that is actually it. That's finished.
It took me another 3 years, at least another 3 years, to get them back together. All of this was in secret, so I had to find somewhere that was secure for the band, and eventually found the Opera House downstairs. Nobody knew about this. All those Chisel fans are out there wondering whether the band's ever going to get back together again, and there they are, down in the bowels of the Sydney Opera House, basically putting together all the songs.
But the big question was, it's been 15 years since we were in a room together, do we still sound any good? There was great joy in the moment when we first lit something up and realised that, yeah, we can play together. A bit rough, needs a bit of work, but it sounds pretty good. We're still a band.
There's underlying excitement. No one's saying anything, but I can just feel it in the room. We know we've got it. All we have to do is knuckle down and do the work.
So we decided we'd do 3 shows out in the country, away from the city, where nobody would see us other than the locals. It was advertised as Jimmy Barnes shows. So I always remember the look on people's face when Jimmy Barnes' band come out, but it's not Jimmy Barnes' band, it's, oh my God, that's Cold Chisel.
It was just, felt like the old days. And it was good to see the crowds turn up in the numbers they did. And that reaffirmed that, well, this wasn't a bad idea.
I think the magic was back. But it wasn't exactly the smoothest. Some rocky things going on internally.
The relationship between the guys in Cold Chisel is very, very good when we're not working together. But every time we get together, there are problems.
At the end of the last wave of summer, I mean, the same old tensions grew again, and the band, for want of a better word, imploded again.
I think as we got older, it's not that Cold Chisel kept breaking up then. It was just that we had to lay it to rest because we could only take so much of the intensity of it at one time. And that's the way it's been for the last, 30 or 40 years.
Saturday night. Saturday night. Saturday night.
Each time that they have returned to play a series of national concerts, they come back together and then they disappear for 5 or 10 years, come back together. They're still writing new songs. They're not trying to coast simply on their old hits. But, those first 4 albums, they really kick ass. Yeah.
In 2009, Chisel played a huge one-off performance to 50,000 people at Sydney's Olympic Park. Then they secretly started recording a new album, making plans to tour again. But in early 2011, they were dealt a massive blow.
When Steve got sick, it was like heart-wrenching. Steve was like my brother. We got drunk, we fought, we punched each other, we cuddled each other.
We were in a rehearsal situation. We were sending somebody up to buy him Nurofen by the truckload because he had these headaches.
He had a prior brain tumour. I never even realised that. So when I heard that it had come back, it was quite a shock for me.
And he was going to have an operation. I was talking to him right up by phone, right up until, the day before. And then he had the operation. He never regained consciousness.
And suddenly we got this call that he didn't make it. And it was like the world had fallen apart.
I got things to do.
After Steve's passing, we found one of his last songs that he'd written called I've Got Things to Do. And we decided to release it with him singing it.
Honey, now where you go?
Well, obviously you sort of build up a bit of something more than sort of camaraderie. It's because we've basically been living together for a long time, you know, touring. You know the old saying, you know, your friends are the people who you know all their faults as well, but you still like them. You know, I think that's what it boils down to.
The work is done, this is my time.
Steve wrote some of the most melodic songs that Cold Chisel ever played. Whenever we play, you know, Flame Trees, whenever we play War Is Over, you know, Forever Now, you know, I still get, you know, misty and I get teary thinking about Steve these days. You know.
When Steve passed away, what do we do now? It's a respectful thing to end it all, finish it. But I think as we sort of accepted his passing, we thought, no, he would have wanted us to keep going and keep making music.
We share some history this town and I.
History is Cold Chisel's reward, right? Their songs are embedded into the national psyche. They're stone cold classics, and they're as much a part of who we are in our head spaces as Henry Lawson's story, The Drover's Wife, or Banjo Patterson's The Man from Snowy River, or whatever it might be.
I like to call the lyrics of Cold Chisel people's poetry. It really is. These are poetic songs delivered by stealth in a visage of rock and roll.
Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away.
When I see a crowd singing back to me, it's emotional.
That's just the ultimate, knowing that you've won these people's hearts.
Ain't nobody gonna steal this heart away.
These songs have become a part of people's lives, and that's something that we never dreamed about as a band. People come up to me and stop me in the street and cry, you know, and say, you know, I play your songs. I played at my son's 21st, you know. I danced with my first dance with my wife to your songs. I buried my father to your songs, you know. I played this at my bar mitzvah.
Well, it's music you listen to since you were, you know, 16 or 17 years old, and I still listen to it to this day. Flame Trees was always a favourite. It was one of my wife's favourite songs as well. So when my wife passed away, to have it used in her funeral service, it's very meaningful. And also near the end when it says it makes it harder to believe that she won't be around. But it's sad.
Just makes it harder to believe that she won't be around. Oh, needs that sentimental bullshit anyway.
There is nothing like the feeling of a party at midnight and you wrap your arms around about 10 people you love and you all turn to yourself and say, who needs that sentimental bullshit anyway? So who needs that sentimental bullshit anyway? I do. We all do.
Members of the 1st Regiment.
As a Vietnam veteran, there's one Cold Chisel song that strikes a chord with me, and that's Khe Sanh.
I had the Vietnam cold turkey.
Yeah, I was conscripted in 1966, and the following year I went off to Southeast Asia, where I spent 318 days, glorious days in lovely South Vietnam, fighting for my country.
How there were no V-Day heroes in 1973.
The song brings back Vietnam and the times I was there, and that I arrived home safely, and of those that didn't.
And now they're back to Southeast Asia. You know the answer sure ain't there.
In the years after it was released, the song has gained popularity. The audience in the concerts go bananas when it's on.
K-Song is like a national anthem, just like Waltzing Matilda. People love it. It's in their lives, you know. In fact, I think they could probably sing K-Song better than they can sing the national anthem.
I firmly believe there are 3 generations of Chisel fan. You know, there's the lucky ones, the ones who found them, you know, mid-70s, and they would have been at the pubs. You know, I'm the middle generation where, you know, I got the compilation records and then the reunion records. And then there's the 3rd generation, and that's my daughters. And they came to this band via Sarah Blasco.
Flame trees will blind the weary driver.
I was really familiar with Flame Trees my whole life because I heard it on the radio all the time, and I was invited to sing on a version of it for the film Little Fish.
There's no change, there's no pain.
Pretty much every show I do, there's always somebody going, play Flame Trees.
This makes it harder to believe she won't be around. Oh.
Cold Chisel getting into their 50th year. Well, this to me it's truly amazing and something I've never foreseen. And it's also making me feel very old. 50 years, my God.
So, first order of business is looking at the album cover.
The next few months will see us getting back together for another run, late in the year.
We're not known for our subtlety, really.
So with that in
But
mind,
that's pretty good.
A little bit of trepidation, a little bit of nerves.
I'll go for the unsubtle one too.
Yeah.
A certain amount of kind of feeling there's always, I'm still yet to deliver our best. If we stop and retire and give up, that's the day we'll start dying.
They're our benchmark of how long you can keep this thing going. You know, like the Rolling Stones, everyone's like, wow, you can still do this, and it's good. And Cold Chisel are our home, example of how long you can keep this going.
We're knitted together. Probably a little bit better at dealing with things and a little bit wiser.
On the last sweep of summer, I lost my soul to you.
Charlie Drayton plays with us now, and Charlie is like probably one of the best groove drummers in the world, bar none, and a great friend of ours, dear friend. He pays homage to Steve every night too. Last year I was in hospital and critical when I could have died and came close to it. And I want to play the music that I love with the band that I love. If I die and after I've done this, at least I know I've done it. I want to play music till the day we drop. If I can do this when we're 90, I'll get the band back together again. We're going to play and keep playing.